I never thought my life would take such a wild turn. But here we are. I'm 28 years old. And for the past few months, I've been caught in the whirlwind of a betrayal I never saw coming. It all started with my fiancé, Ron, who was 27. We'd been together for 5 years, 4 of them as a couple, one as an engaged couple. We met in college, and although we started off as friends, we eventually became a couple after graduation. We were steady, we were solid, and I thought we were going to get married in October. Things began to take a strange turn when I left for a summer program in the UK. Ron and I were in touch every day. But things started to change after 2 weeks. He said he was stressed about work, but it felt off. I didn't think much of it at first. I assumed it was just the distance, the time zone difference, and the stress of work. But then he started pulling away. The day before I left the UK, I could tell something wasn't right. He stopped talking to me altogether. I had pride. And though I felt hurt, I wasn't going to chase after anyone, especially not him. But then came the punch to my gut. A week later, my aunt showed up at my door, holding a wedding invitation. I thought it was for some relative. But when she handed it to me, I nearly passed out. It was for my ex-fiancé, Ron, and her daughter, Lucia. I couldn't believe it. My cousin, the one who had always been compared to me, the one who never even finished high school, was now marrying the man I had once planned to spend my life with. How could he fall for her? I wondered, dumbfounded. My aunt, with her usual sickly sweet tone, tried to explain that people fall out of love, and maybe Ron couldn't handle the distance. She went on and on about how wonderful my cousin was, how she was so beautiful and charming. I couldn't even speak. My head was spinning and my heart felt like it was being torn apart. She kept saying things like, "You know how beautiful my Lucia is, dear. You can't blame Ron for falling for her." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She then dropped the bomb. Ron came to Lucia for coffee. You know, he had nothing else to do after work. What could he do? You know how charming she is. I was shaking with anger and disbelief, but I couldn't even interrupt her. She kept going, telling me how sweet Ron was, how he asked for Lucia's hand in marriage like a true gentleman. I looked at her, my eyes brimming with tears. I had no words left. I wanted to scream, to make her see the ugliness of what she was doing. But instead, I just stood there, feeling like a fool. Then came the final insult. "I love you just as much as I love Lucia," she said, as if that somehow made it all okay. My heart shattered, and with all the strength I could muster, I yelled. "I don't want to hear any more." I wiped my tears, tried to compose myself, and asked her to leave. But she wasn't done. "Don't worry, dear. I understand it's hard for you to find another man, especially with your looks," she said, with that same condescending smile. "But don't worry, there are plenty of divorced men out there looking for love." I didn't care anymore. I wanted her out. "Get out," I yelled. I felt humiliated, and I regret giving her the satisfaction of seeing me vulnerable. But the truth is, sometimes we just can't keep it together. That's when everything started to fall apart. The news spread fast. Everyone in the family knew about Ron and me, and now everyone knew he was marrying Lucia. I felt so stupid. I had been so proud of our engagement, so proud of the life we were going to build together. But now, it seemed like nothing more than a joke. My aunt spread her own version of the story, one where I was too stubborn and self-centered. She claimed that Ron couldn't handle the distance and that he was just looking for someone else to help him. Of course, she spun it in a way that painted me as the villain, claiming that Ron was so frustrated with me and that I was somehow responsible for everything that went wrong. And all this time, I thought I was handling things maturely, but the reality was so much worse. But as devastated as I was, I knew I had to move on. Even though it was hard, I couldn't keep dwelling on the past. I focused on what was next. The pain of the betrayal lingered, but slowly, I started to understand something vital. I had to focus on myself, not on what they were doing. My life wasn't over just because Ron had walked away with my cousin, and my aunt had thrown her weight around like I was some fool to be discarded. The truth was, I was better off without them. That realization didn't come easily, though. It took time. A lot of time, and even more heartbreak. I knew I had to leave, so I packed my bags and left for the UK. The thought of staying in the same city, walking past the same places I had visited with Ron, was unbearable. Every street corner, every cafe, every spot where we'd shared memories together, only served as a reminder of what had been stolen from me. I had to go. I found a job in Leeds, packed up my life, and left without a second thought. Moving to a new country felt like hitting the reset button. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it helped. If you can change your scenery, sometimes that's all you need to reset your mind and find some peace. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a little bit of that peace. The weight that had been pressing on my chest slowly started to lift. A few weeks later, my mom called. Her voice was quiet, but with a hint of something strange in it. She asked me if Ron was unemployed. I hadn't heard from him or his family in a while, and I didn't care to, but I knew I had to answer. I said, "Yes, he's not working." The story that followed was like a slap in the face. My mom laughed when I told her about Ron's little dream of being a writer. She said, "You know, your aunt came over the other day. She asked me why I didn't tell her Ron was a bum." I was confused, and my mom explained that Ron had quit his stable job to pursue his passion. He had wanted to start a business, and we had made plans together. I had supported him financially while he worked on his dream. And now, here he was, failing to support himself, running to Lucia, of all people, for help. But the real kicker, my aunt had gone ahead and married Lucia to him. She had made sure Ron was locked in with her daughter. It wasn't just the marriage I found absurd, but the fact that my aunt had orchestrated everything, clearly with the intention of making Ron dependent on them both. She had seen Lucia's beauty and thought it would be enough to trap Ron into a lifetime of servitude to her daughter. What a fool she was, as if it couldn't get worse. I found out that my aunt had also been living off my grandparents' pension after her affair with Lucia's father. No wonder she was so desperate to secure Lucia's future. They were all in it together, using whatever means necessary to survive, even if it meant manipulating others along the way. Then the ultimate humiliation arrived. The trust fund we had created together, the one that was supposed to be for our business, the one that I had contributed to over the years, was at the center of it all. When I found out Ron had cheated on me, I made a decision. I liquidated the trust fund, every single cent of it. He had no idea. As far as he was concerned, I was still holding on to that money, thinking I would give him half once I calmed down. But no, I wasn't about to let him get away with it. That money was mine, and if we were still engaged, it would have been considered alimony, but we weren't. So I took it, every last bit, and left him with nothing. I didn't feel bad about it, not for 1 second. I had supported him financially when he was in need. I had been his rock, his partner in everything. And what did I get in return? Betrayal, infidelity, his failure to even try to make it work after we'd planned our future together. To top it all off, my aunt and Lucia had the audacity to show up at my parents' house, demanding to know what happened to the trust fund. They were shocked, desperate, and frankly, it was satisfying to watch. Ron had told them I had taken his part, and now they were trying to use my parents to get the money back. Lucia, in all her naivety, couldn't understand why I wouldn't just hand over the money. "Why won't you tell me?" she asked. "My future depends on this." I wanted to laugh. She was clueless, and my aunt was just as bad, thinking she could guilt trip me into giving them what they wanted. But no, I wasn't backing down. My dad overheard the conversation, and that was when things really got interesting. My aunt had the nerve to tell me I should lower my ego because Lucia had outdone me by marrying Ron. The level of disrespect was unimaginable. But my dad, hearing enough, walked in and shut them down. He told my aunt that if she dared raise her voice again, he would cut off all financial help he'd been giving her. That's when my aunt, who had been so self-righteous just moments ago, crumbled. She started crying, saying she had done all this for Lucia's future. She tried to make excuses for her manipulative behavior, but my dad wasn't having it. He told her that if Lucia was so successful, she should be helping Ron pay the bills. It was her mess now, and she was going to have to clean it up. Lucia, standing there, sobbing, said Ron had ruined her life because he couldn't support her anymore. But the reality was, Ron had always been a burden, and now he was theirs to deal with. They had no idea about his financial struggles, his failed career, or how desperate they were. And that was when I finally had my moment of satisfaction. My aunt had been so proud of her little scheme, thinking she had orchestrated the perfect marriage for her daughter. But now everything was crumbling. They were no longer in control of the situation. They were the ones left struggling. I ended it with one last cutting remark. "Don't worry about Lucia. There are plenty of sugar daddies out there who would love to take care of her," I said. It felt mean, but after everything they'd done to me, I didn't feel bad. This was karma, and it was sweet to see them finally get what they deserved. The satisfaction from seeing my aunt and Lucia's world crumble didn't last long, though. While they had their own mess to deal with, I still had my own demons to face. My heart wasn't completely healed, and I had moments where I wanted to scream and curse the betrayal that had wrecked my life. But as time passed, I realized something important. I was free. I wasn't weighed down by the lies and the manipulation anymore. I had cut myself free from the toxic relationships that had defined so much of my life. I focused on my job in the UK, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my own destiny. I began to look forward to things, my future, my career, my happiness. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary, and I knew I was getting stronger every day. But then came an unexpected email. Ron. I hadn't heard from him in months, and to be honest, I never thought I'd hear from him again. But there it was, sitting in my inbox, a message from the man who had once been my fiancé. I took a deep breath before opening it, unsure of what I would find. The email started with an apology, and my heart sank. "I know I ruined everything," it said. "I'm sorry for the way I hurt you, and I regret everything that happened." But the more I read, the more I realized it was the same old story. He wasn't really taking responsibility for his actions. He was just playing the victim. As always, Ron went on to talk about how he had borrowed money from a friend to pay the overdue rent, but he was still behind. Apparently, his client had delayed payment, and the landlord had threatened to evict him. He mentioned that he'd asked my aunt for a place to stay, but my grandparents had refused. He was still in the same situation, struggling, and he was trying to get some sympathy from me. He mentioned that Lucia had lied to him about her job and education. She had convinced him that she was a manager at a restaurant, making good money, but the reality was far from that. It was almost painful to read, knowing how much of a fool he had made of himself. He even said he was giving up on his dreams of writing and was looking for a job in his old field. I felt a flicker of something. Maybe it was pity. Maybe it was anger, but I quickly shoved it aside. He had made his bed, and now he was lying in it. He had chosen Lucia over me, and now he was paying the price. He was the one who had betrayed me, and no amount of regret or excuses could change that. I ignored his first email, but a few days later, he sent another one. This time, the tone was a little different. He was still apologizing, still trying to make me feel guilty for what had happened. He mentioned how my aunt had manipulated the whole situation, how she had taken advantage of my trust, and how she had stolen him away from me. I didn't even feel anger anymore, just a profound sense of relief that I wasn't the one caught in that trap anymore. My aunt's lies, her manipulation, and her schemes were no longer my problem. Ron's life was falling apart, but that was his doing. He had made a choice, and now he was facing the consequences. I replied to his email, and in no uncertain terms, I told him never to contact me again. I blocked his email and his number. I didn't need him in my life anymore. He had betrayed me, and nothing would ever make that okay. I didn't care about his regrets or his sob stories. I was done. But the saga didn't end there. Of course, it didn't. A few days later, my aunt showed up again, this time with Lucia in tow. They came to my parents' house, demanding answers. They wanted to know what had happened to the money from the trust fund. Apparently, Ron had told them that I had taken his share and they were coming to collect. At first, I didn't want to engage with them, but they pushed me too far. Lucia, with her innocent little act, was still asking, "Why won't you just tell me? My future depends on this." My aunt, in her usual condescending tone, was lecturing me on how I should be ashamed of myself. After all, Ron had chosen her daughter and I should just accept it. That was when I completely lost my patience. "This is none of your business," I said, my voice cold and steady. "I won't discuss my private matters with you." But Lucia, of course, didn't understand. She kept pestering me, insisting I had to help her. "We need that money," she whined. "Where is it? Don't be so selfish." My dad, who had been in the other room, came in after hearing the commotion. When he saw my aunt and Lucia, he didn't hesitate. He told them in no uncertain terms that if they didn't stop, he would cut off all the financial help he had been giving them. That was the moment I knew everything had changed. For years, my dad had been a silent supporter of my aunt and Lucia, but no more. Lucia broke down in front of him, sobbing about how Ron had ruined her life. She begged my dad to give them the money so they wouldn't be evicted. But my dad wasn't moved by her tears. He told her straight up, "If you're so successful, why don't you help Ron pay the rent? You're his wife now, after all." My aunt, who had been so smug just moments earlier, suddenly crumbled. She started crying, saying how she had done everything to secure Lucia's future. And now everything was falling apart. I didn't feel sorry for her. If anything, I felt vindicated. She had gotten what she deserved. Before they left, I couldn't help but get in one last dig. "Don't worry about Lucia. There are plenty of sugar daddies out there who would love to take care of her," I said. And that hit them hard. It was mean, but it was the truth. They had tried to manipulate me for so long, and now they were getting a taste of their own medicine. I didn't care about them anymore. I was done. They could drown in their own lies. The only thing that mattered now was that I had taken control of my life again. I didn't need them. And I didn't need Ron. They could all figure out their own mess. The karma that had been building for so long had finally caught up with them, and I was enjoying every moment of it. 2 years have passed since everything fell apart. And looking back, I can hardly recognize the person I was. The chaos, the heartbreak, the anger, it all feels like a distant memory now. My life is so different, and the people who once had such a grip on me are nothing more than fading echoes in the background. When I think about those first few months after the betrayal, the devastation, and the tears, I realize just how far I've come. Sure, there were times when I doubted myself, when I questioned my worth, when I wanted to reach out and try to mend the broken pieces with Ron or my aunt. But every day, I grew stronger. And now, all I feel is gratitude for the lessons I learned the hard way. I'm not the same person I was when I packed my bags and left for the UK. At first, I thought it would be just a temporary escape, but it became my rebirth. My job in Leeds has been everything I needed and more. I've found fulfillment in my work, and I've met new people who have added real value to my life. Life has taken on a rhythm that feels natural, peaceful even. And then, something even better happened. I met someone. His name is Tom, and he's everything Ron wasn't. He's kind, thoughtful, and he actually listens when I talk. He doesn't care about past mistakes or who I used to be. He just loves me for who I am now, and that's been more healing than I ever thought possible. We've been together for almost a year now, and I can't imagine my life without him. It's funny how life works sometimes. You think you're losing everything, but in reality, you're making space for something far better. And then there's Ron. I know some people might say I should feel sorry for him, but I don't. His life has unraveled, and while it's not something I ever would have wished for him, it's exactly what he deserves. He's still struggling, still trying to make it work with Lucia. But from what I hear, it's a mess. He doesn't have a steady job, and he's still in debt. He's stuck, and honestly, I couldn't care less. He made his choices, and he's paying for them now. But the most satisfying part is knowing that my aunt and Lucia have gotten a taste of their own medicine. Last I heard, they were still living in the same shabby apartment, barely scraping by. Lucia's still working that part-time receptionist job. And from the way things are going, I doubt she'll ever be anything more than that. My aunt, who thought she could use me and my trust fund to secure her daughter's future, is realizing now that she's got nothing left to manipulate. They've both been exposed for who they really are, and the truth is, there's nothing they can do about it. It wasn't just about the trust fund or the betrayal, though. It was about reclaiming my power, my dignity, and my future. The best revenge, they say, is living well, and that's exactly what I've done. I'm in control of my life now, and I'm not letting anyone, not even the people who tried to tear me down, take that from me. My dad and I have grown much closer over the past 2 years. After the confrontation with my aunt and Lucia, he's been my rock. He's apologized for not stepping in sooner when my aunt started treating me like I was worthless. And I've forgiven him. I know he had his reasons, but he's shown me nothing but love and support since that day. He's proud of me for standing up for myself, for taking the high road, and for moving on. I'm proud of myself, too. As for my mom, she's been a constant source of strength. When I moved to the UK, she supported me fully. She never once questioned my decision. She understood that I needed to find myself again. And she's been there for me every step of the way, whether through long-distance calls or sending little care packages filled with love. In the end, I got everything I needed: closure, healing, and a fresh start. What happened with Ron, my aunt, and Lucia isn't something I ever would have chosen, but it has shaped me into the person I am today. And I'm stronger, smarter, and more resilient because of it. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I'm excited about it. I'm not carrying the weight of betrayal anymore. I've learned that when one door closes, it's only because a much better one is waiting for you to walk through. I've learned that the people who truly love you will stick around, and the ones who don't, well, they'll fade into the background where they belong. I'm living my best life now, and nothing, not Ron, not my aunt, not Lucia, can take that away from me. And that, my friends, is the sweetest victory of all.